Okay, welcome everyone. We'll proceed with a fairly lengthy agenda today, and our first item of business, we will move in camera for the first part of the meeting. So I'll accept a motion to move in camera. Harwinder has moved, Pam seconded, all in favor? Motion has passed. in main session. Just give me the go ahead, Jennifer, now, okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Janet Rutledge. I am the MLA for Burnaby North and the chair of the Select Standing Committee on Finance and Government Services, a committee of the Legislative Assembly that includes MLAs from the government and opposition parties. I would like to acknowledge that I am joining the meeting today from Main Island, the traditional territory of the Tartlet people, Tartlet Nation. And their continued presence here is a constant reminder to us newcomers that we have a shared responsibility to help steward the land and be mindful of its fragility. I would also like to welcome everyone listening to this meeting. Our committee is currently seeking input on the next provincial budget. Our consultation is based on the Minister of Finance's budget consultation paper, which we will be hearing about shortly. British Columbians can share their views by making written comments or by filling out the online survey. Details are available on our website at bcleg.ca/FGS budget. The deadline for input is 5 p.m. on Thursday, September 30th, 2021. We will carefully consider all input to make recommendations to the Legislative Assembly on what should be included in Budget 2022. The committee intends to release its report in November. Today, we'll be receiving a presentation from the Honourable Selina Robinson, Minister of Finance, on the Budget 2022 consultation paper. And I see that the Minister is with us now. She's joined us. Thank you, Minister, for taking the time today to walk us through your budget presentation, the budget proposal. So over to you, Minister.
Thank you very much, Emily Rutledge. I would like to begin by acknowledging that I'm speaking to you from the territory of the Coast Salish people, and in particular the Kwikwetlam First Nation, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to live, work, and play on their traditional and ceded territories. I understand that there is a presentation, slide presentation, and I understand the clerk's office is going to be putting that up. I just want to double check.
Yes, thanks, Minister. It should be up momentarily.
Great, thank you very much. I'd like, first of all, I'd like to thank you and the committee members for undertaking the budget consultation process. It is an important role, and I want you to know that I really value your work. And this year in particular has been like no other. We have felt challenges personally in our homes and in our families and in our communities and in our work. And the pandemic has touched our lives in different ways. And many people, many British Columbians are still feeling its effects. And we know that they will for some time, but they won't have to face those challenges alone. And since the beginning of the pandemic, with all of its unknowns, all of its uncertainty, and the anxiety that came, that certainly marked those days in the beginning for our province, we stood shoulder to shoulder in the face of a crisis and relied on each other to see our way through it together. From Lower Post to Langley Township, all of us British Columbians recognized that we were in this together, and that spirit of commitment to each other and to our resilience is paying off. Because of that dedication to each other, while the pandemic isn't over yet, there are really good reasons for hope, including how well we're doing with the vaccination rollout, being able to connect with each other in person again, and we are certainly seeing positive signs in our provincial economy. And this hope that we all feel, it's only possible because we as British Columbians decided that our future success would rely on us all steering into the wind together against an unprecedented challenge. And it's these values that informed Budget 2021, and it was a call to action to deliver for the people of British Columbia and building today for a better tomorrow. Together, we created a budget that responds to the impacts of the pandemic, today's challenges, while preparing us as well for the future challenges and opportunities through investing in healthcare, strengthening the services that all British Columbians depend on, and building a bridge to a recovery, one that comes with opportunities that we know lay ahead for all of us. So if you go to the next slide. It wasn't very long ago that Budget 2021 was delivered. At the time, we were beginning to look forward to a more hopeful summer and the beginning of a stronger economic recovery. And today, we're even more hopeful as we carefully and safely return to a life more like the one that we knew before COVID-19. We've cautiously turned more of our attention towards the future. And we are committed to a future that British Columbians have told us that they want. Specifically, a future where healthy people, healthy communities, and a strong economy are all the same. That our recovery must include everyone in every part of our province, and to maintain and strengthen the services that all of us rely on. This consultation process is one of the crucial ways to ensure that we continue to show British Columbians that we, as members of the Legislative Assembly, hold their well-being to be paramount and will continue to address the crises that face us all. And we're going to do that work together. I'm thankful for and appreciative of this committee, the members, and the solemn responsibility you have in listening to the needs and the dreams of British Columbians who have sacrificed so much and look ahead to a future that leaves no one behind. Now, the work of this committee and its consultation process to gather and inform and advise will be critical to continuing the spirit of unity and progress that we have come to be known for. Next slide. If we don't have, as we start the consultation for the next budget, it's essential to understand really what we're building on. We are building on the legacy of all party support for British Columbians in the face of an unprecedented crisis. We're building on the success of our collective commitment to British Columbians. The current budget is focused on continuing to protect British Columbians' health and safety, supporting people and businesses through the pandemic, and strengthening the foundation of our economy for a strong post-pandemic recovery. In addition to new permanent investments of $8.7 billion over the fiscal plan, pandemic and recovery contingencies have been included to keep us nimble and responsive to the needs of all British Columbians as we turn the corner on COVID-19. And turning the corner on the pandemic and building an economy where all British Columbians can participate in its prosperity with dignity and hope remains an absolute priority. To do that, investing in the people of this province and building an environment where we can all thrive together must be at the forefront of our actions. As you know, Budget 2021 makes significant new capital commitments in the health, transportation, education sectors, and the government continues to fund the values of British Columbians with investments in hospitals and schools and post-secondary facilities and transit and roads and other infrastructure around the province. That represents a record $26.4 billion over the fiscal plan period. Our collective commitment to investing in British Columbians is what helped us weather the storm during the worst of the pandemic, and it will be the commitment that guides our prosperity in the future. Next slide. If we don't have healthy people, frankly, we don't have a healthy economy. And this last year has highlighted the importance of strong health and mental health services. As more and more British Columbians get vaccinated, we can absolutely see the light at the end of the tunnel. But we're not there yet, and keeping people safe continues to be our top priority. Budget 2021 provides more than $4 billion to help keep people safe from COVID-19 today, while strengthening our health and mental health care system for tomorrow. Together, we have committed to funding to reduce wait times for surgeries, giving patients faster access to the help they need, and supporting seniors who've had a frightening and lonely year with improvements in long-term care and home care. The physical and mental well-being of British Columbians across this province is important to all of us, and we all recognize that the loss of so many of our fellow citizens to a poison drug supply must continue to be addressed. We also know that continuing to improve mental health supports for young people, for Indigenous people, and for British Columbians as a whole is critical to helping people live long, fulfilling lives. I imagine that continuing to invest in health and mental health will see strong representation and advocacy in the consultations that you will do with the public and with stakeholders. Next slide. And as you know, every day, people and businesses across our province are working hard to fight the virus and to get life back on track. For too many families, life was difficult before the pandemic, and COVID-19 exacerbated the struggles for those families. And it became exceptionally clear that for British Columbians to get through the worst of the pandemic, British Columbians had to be supported and the services they relied on had to be readily accessible when they needed it. The social infrastructure that we have committed to building during the pandemic will see families come out the other side stronger. K-12 education, free public transportation for children under 12, introducing and growing a universal childcare system, and increasing women's participation in the economy after the pandemic reduced their participation in the workforce are just some of the actions that British Columbians have told us that we need to continue to address. And I expect that you're going to see this as well in your consultation process. Next slide. We also know that not everyone was affected by the pandemic in the same way. And some people who are already struggling have been at risk of falling even further behind as a result of the pandemic. For people who are already experiencing economic and social barriers, the pandemic presented an additional barrier to getting the help they need. That's why Budget 2021 funds the largest permanent increase to income and disability assistance rates ever. For low-income seniors, we doubled the senior supplement rates. This is the first increase ever in the program's history. It was started in 1987 and had never been increased. We're also continuing to support people experiencing homelessness by providing more than 3,000 temporary shelters and hotel spaces for people experiencing homelessness. This comes with meals, support staff, and equipment needed to maintain safe shelters. These investments will allow us to continue to progress towards reducing the overall poverty rate by 25% and the child poverty rate by 50% by 2024 and meeting our poverty reduction goals. Next slide. That quality, affordable, and inclusive childcare is critical to families, to communities, and to the economy. Every day, this fact is becoming more known, not only here in British Columbia, but right across the entire country. And I'm glad that British Columbia is a leader in this regard in supporting families and the economy. In 2018, government listened to British Columbians and launched Childcare BC to bring affordable, accessible, and quality childcare to families across the province. Since then, over 26,000 new childcare spaces have been funded, with thousands more new spaces funded each year under the New Spaces Fund. Now, Budget 2021 provides funding to create even more spaces, and the federal government has now come to the table with additional funding to support this landmark effort here in British Columbia. The number of children who can get care for $10 a day or less through the Universal Childcare Prototype Program are being more than doubled. And this also includes 400 new spaces for the Aboriginal Head Start program, which provides culturally appropriate childcare for Indigenous families. And the workforce behind the workforce, those early childhood educators, they've been absolutely instrumental to these efforts and in keeping our economy going during COVID-19. And they are the foundation for a strong future. Their work is recognized and they will benefit from new wage increases introduced in the 2021 budget. Next slide. Making life more affordable for British Columbians also means being able to attract and retain workers and families, and especially when it comes to housing. The COVID-19 pandemic has contributed to the high activity we are currently seeing in the housing market. With more people working from home, the demands for more space increased housing activity. Low interest rates combined with low inventory of homes have certainly driven up prices. However, while we do expect some moderation in the market in the coming months and into 2022 as the recovery takes hold, and all levels of government continue our combined effort to improve housing affordability, we've remained vigilant in continuing to tackle the crisis by addressing speculation, reducing rent increases, and implementing the current rent freeze. And we must build new homes. And BC Housing is working hard to meet its goal of building in partnership over 114,000 affordable homes over 10 years. To date, close to 30,000 new homes have been completed or are underway. And Budget 2021 continues that work. We're continuing to fund new low and middle income housing units with funding to nonprofit providers and $1.6 billion of provincial capital investment. And in this budget, we are providing $2 billion in additional financing to expand the Housing Hub program. This program alone will add 9,000 new homes for families over the course of the next 3 to 5 years, in addition to the 1,000 homes that have been built to date. Next slide. Budget 2021 focuses on investments that will ensure that no one is left behind as we continue to fight the pandemic and move into recovery. We all know that recovery won't happen overnight, but these investments build on previous measures taken to make a difference for people every day. This includes more affordable childcare, eliminating MSP premiums, the BC Child Opportunity Benefit that families started receiving last October, and eliminating student loan interest and bridge tolls, and bringing in more affordable car insurance. These measures and those in Budget 2021 all make life something that is deeply needed, especially in the face of economic recovery. Next slide. Budget 2021 continues to help businesses maneuver through COVID-19, helping them to adapt and prepare to seize the opportunities that recovery will bring. We all know that the pandemic impacted different sectors in different ways. By working together, we didn't wait to get support into the hands of the businesses that needed help. We acted. Working with business stakeholders, Budget 2021 continues to build on the supports we provided over the previous year, including the Stronger BC tax incentive for employers that have hired or increased compensation in the last quarter of 2020 compared to the previous quarter, more funding for the Grow BC, Feed BC, and Buy BC strategies, and the PST exemption for select machinery and equipment to help businesses expand operations. Through BC's Restart Plan, there is now a clear path forward that will provide businesses with some certainty as we begin a gradual and careful return to normal. Through Stronger BC, BC's $1.5 billion economic recovery plan, businesses affected by the COVID-19 pandemic were and will continue to be supported. Supports will also remain in place for business and workers. On May 18th, the Major Anchor Attractions Program was announced after working closely with stakeholders, businesses, and nonprofits in the tourism sector that operate major attractions. The Agritech Grant Program has invested up to $7.5 million to help BC's agritech, agriculture, and technology companies scale up, expand, and develop technologies to help increase sustainable and regenerative food production in British Columbia and to work towards increasing local food security. The Accelerating Manufacturing Scale-Up Grant Program provides eligible businesses with cost-shared funding to a maximum of $250,000 for individual business projects or up to $500,000 for projects by a group of businesses. We're also investing $42 million in the new Launch Online Grant Program to help eligible small and medium BC businesses build or strengthen their digital commerce capabilities. We provided funding to Small Business BC to support the BC Business COVID-19 Support Service and the Personal Protective Equipment and BC marketplaces. We are prepared to continue supporting British Columbia for however long this crisis lasts, and we are setting ourselves up to take further actions as needed. Through the whole pandemic, we've been nimble in creating new supports quickly as they were needed, and we are adjusting our response as the landscape changes. This is why we've built significant pandemic and recovery contingencies into this budget. And the Circuit Breaker Business Relief Grant is an excellent example of this. The program was developed in less than a week, and we will continue to get help to those who need it when they need it. And we will continue to support businesses through this challenging time and right through recovery. Next slide. Collectively, We have also made reconciliation with Indigenous peoples across government priority. Budget 2021 includes stable funding to support engagement with Indigenous peoples on a range of matters, including land and resource activities, legislation, and policy. We're also providing more funding to create more childcare spaces for Indigenous families, deliver the skills training initiatives that will lead to long-term employment for unemployed and underemployed Indigenous people. And let's be really clear, racism has no place in this province and in the delivery of its services. Budget 2021 provides funding to implement recommendations from the In Plain Sight report, as well as cultural safety and humility training across health and mental health addiction services. We know that the road towards reconciliation and addressing racism is long, and we will continue to work with Indigenous people and First Nations communities to create a stronger and inclusive BC for everyone. Next slide. COVID-19 is not the only great challenge of our generation. Our action on climate change will shape our province and the world for generations to come. And given the current situation with fires right around this province, it has only come more and more evident that climate change is the most pressing issue for all of us. And we must make sure that a post-COVID future is a greener and more sustainable one. Clean BC is our plan to build a cleaner, more sustainable future. Budget 2021 includes an additional $506 million in new investments to reduce emissions, to create opportunities, and to promote affordability. Budget 2021's investments bring the total funding for Clean BC to nearly $2.2 billion over 5 years. It will support working with industries to decrease their carbon footprint, expand clean transportation, build more efficient buildings, and make British Columbia a center of clean energy innovation, protecting our future and this place that we love. Next slide. By keeping people healthy and investing in communities, we are moving toward a strong economic recovery that includes everyone. Budget 2021 includes record levels of capital investment with $26.4 billion in funding over 3 years. This is a $3.5 billion increase when compared to Budget 2020. These investments support a strong and sustainable economy with investments in roads and transit and schools and housing and hospitals. Investments like hospitals in Cowichan and Surrey and Stewart Lake and Dawson Creek and the replacement of St. Paul's Hospital. We're investing in the future of BC and high growth potential businesses through the $500 million In BC Investment Fund. We're leveraging investments from the private and public sectors to help businesses grow so these companies can scale up and making BC's economy stronger by supporting startups, anchoring talent, and keeping jobs and investments right here in British Columbia. Next slide. British Columbians have been through a great deal, and we've been through this great deal together. And I'm sure that every single one of us can point to a moment in the last 16 months when we felt that our world was turned absolutely upside down. COVID-19 has challenged and changed British Columbians in ways that we never could have imagined. But British Columbians are resilient. We look out for each other. We know a recovery won't happen overnight, but by focusing on those things that matter to people most, we'll keep making impactful and successful progress. Government will continue to be here for British Columbians. Budget 2021 supports people now, keeping them safe and keeping them healthy, and it looks to the future. And I can tell you, a future with opportunities is what we need. A future with opportunities for everyone will be part of a strong economic recovery. And I can tell you that even with the financial challenges brought on by the pandemic and the need to provide people and businesses and communities with support, our credit ratings are healthy. They're the best in the nation. And that's thanks to our solid fiscal planning, our strong economic foundation, and our reputation as a jurisdiction that everyone can count on. And I'm pleased to help kick off this committee's 2022 budget consultation. And I want to thank you for the work that you'll be doing and have done to date. This budget consultation process is an opportunity for British Columbians to tell us their stories. It's an opportunity for them to share their ideas and to outline their priorities for their government. This is a critical time to engage the public and to hear their thoughts and where government should be focused on as we move forward. I eagerly await reading this committee's final report on budget consultations when it's ready, and I encourage everyone interested in lending their voice to the process to read over the 2022 budget consultation paper, and I look forward to working with you as we continue towards a pandemic-free future. Thank you very much. Next slide, and I'm happy to take your questions.
Thank you, Minister. So I will open it up to the committee to ask questions. I guess people are thinking about their questions. Well, maybe I'll get things started. Thank you, Minister. Can you? I know this may seem like a bit short notice in terms of everything that's going on. I mean, right now. Can you give us a bit more background detail about how you would envision specifically the impact of climate change and the evidence of it that we're seeing daily, how you would see that as impacting on our next budget, on how we as a province should be spending money?
Thank you very much for the question. So I think we need to recognize first and foremost, those people who are on the front lines, and I want to express my gratitude to those who are fighting the fires and dealing with those challenges. And so when I think about how we have to prepare for on two fronts, the reality is that we're seeing more extreme weather events. So we need to be prepared in protecting our infrastructure and protecting people. And so how do we invest in that in terms of making sure that what we have is safe, the people, the businesses, our communities, and our infrastructure. We also need to be paying attention to reducing GHG emissions. Because we know how costly it's going to be if we don't get a handle on that. I'm sure most of you have been seeing what's happening with the flooding in Europe and in China and these extreme weather events and the impact on the infrastructure. I'm thinking about what in Lytton, the infrastructure cost alone as a result of the fire and what that means to rebuild a community. So there are real costs going forward if we do not reduce our GHG emissions, if we do not get pulled back from this edge. And so we need to find the right balance to protect what we have, as well as investing in making sure that we can reduce our GHG emissions.
Thank you. Ben, do I see your, yes.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. Minister, thanks very much for your presentation and, the goals and outlining, the important issues that you're trying to deal with. The recent announcement, and I just wondering, under improving health and mental health, you talked about the safe drug supply, and I don't know what the cost is and whether that's kind of included in these tables that you've provided. Just wondering, what's the cost of that program going to be, or what's it forecast to be?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I don't have that details. I can certainly get that to you if you'd like. I didn't bring out costing out of all of our programs, but it's all built in to budget 2021. I'd have to go and pull up the answer to your specific question. I'm sure we can get that to you.
And maybe one other question. Your former colleague, Joy McPhail, presented a report just prior to days when the session ended about affordable housing and some of the barriers in that. And I realize that that's your colleague's responsibility. But I guess the question is that there's some fairly significant and provocative suggestions in there on both sides, both with local government, which I know you've been the minister of, as I have, and I know that would not necessarily be as welcome as it might, as easily as it's written. So, but I do think that the issue about affordability, which I think is a hallmark of your government, and of course, being the critic, I do hear about this in every community that I talk to. But more importantly, I suspect that this committee is going to hear lots about affordability and the lack of affordability. And I don't think government can build all the affordable housing. So I'm just kind of looking at, is this document go far enough in terms of what you're willing to kind of do? And maybe that's a combination of legislative changes versus investment, just to kind of try and address that.
Yeah, it's an excellent question, and it's certainly a significant challenge. All governments have a role in addressing housing affordability, and I think you've certainly hit the nail on the head around. Local governments certainly have a role. Certainly, as a province, we have a role, and the federal government finally, after a tremendous absence, is finally back in the game of addressing affordable housing. So I'll respond to your question with three different parts. So first of all, if you take a look at the impact on housing affordability and how things have changed over time, you can pinpoint when CMHC got out of the business in '93, and then you can see the deterioration of housing affordability since '93. And we know that the federal government has a significant role in addressing housing affordability for sure. The province absolutely, our commitment with, $7 billion over 10 years to build thousands and thousands of subsidized housing, but also middle income housing. The Housing Hub is a new creature of BC Housing, and their role is to bring together the private sector, the local government, and as well as the province to bundle creative ways of delivering on affordability for middle income. So it's targeting middle income. And in this last budget, we provided them with additional $2 billion for development financing to help move things along and deliver more affordability. The local government, of course, as you know, has the land use planning tools, and they have a responsibility for determining things like density in particular areas. And they also do all the development permitting. And time is money. We all know that. And we are certainly seeing a real mixed bag in terms of some communities that can deliver the permitting, in 6 months, and others that take years and years and years. And that creates significant challenges around affordability. So we started the DAPR program, looking at the development approval process review. We did it in combination under my role when my previous ministry role. And that review was undertaken in collaboration with the UBCM, as well as the development community, to really problem solve and identify different ways and different places to address that system working more effectively. Right now, Minister Osborne and Minister Eby together are looking at that. I'm keeping an eye on it, partly because I have the finance file, but partly because I'd spent some significant time trying to address that particular challenge. There's interesting work happening, and they are identifying ways that they can speed up the process. And of course, we do have a legislative tool. I always like to work with local government. I think you get a better result, and they're recognizing their role as well. In fact, yesterday, just to give you just a small example, yesterday I was at a housing announcement here in my community in Coquitlam. When I was first minister, so this would have been early in 2017, there was a community open house looking at a project that was going to be built by Concert Properties, several hundred meters from Burquitlam Station. And it was going to be 300 homes. And I think they had identified 10 homes for affordability. And I have to say, I was deeply concerned that was all that they were going to be able to deliver, with the role that the provincial government was brought to the table. The feds weren't in the game yet, but also that the local government has a housing affordability program, and really pushed the developer to reach out to BC Housing, to reach out to the city, that I really felt that there was more that they could deliver. And it's been a couple of years, but yesterday, and the feds, of course, have come in, We joined with the federal government and with the local government and with the nonprofit that it's this 300 rental units that are being built. 100 of them through the Community Housing Fund are going to be operated by the local not-for-profit housing society. It's going to be interspersed with all the other rental units. So there's no such thing as a poor door. This is going to be, with market rent, with seniors, with subsidized for families, right by SkyTrain. The wide MCA is building also a facility right next door. So all the recreation supports are there. There'll be childcare there. It really is a spectacular project. But the thing that happened was everyone came to the table. It was an announcement with a federal representative, a provincial representative, a local government representative. And I have to give kudos to Concert as the private sector developer, because they came to and said, we're going to do this. It's going to be hard work, but we're going to do this. We're going to bring everyone together. And it's going to be a fabulous project. And I know it can be done. And that really means all of us working together.
Thank you, Minister. Mike.
Thanks.
Thank you, and thank you, Minister. You highlighted a number of programs that dealt with arts, film, tourism, and sport. And I think through the pandemic, everybody's just craving to be able to do all of those things, to get out and about. And we see in our presentations that are coming our way, there is a raft of organizations that are coming forward to speak to those topics. So I'm just curious as to the lens that will be coming forward from what we've been successful with doing now and how it'll apply into the next budget.
Well, this is the important work that you're doing. It's really critical that we hear from these various sectors. So you'll notice that when the pandemic first struck, we delivered broad-based supports, right? We took a look at, reducing taxes and for businesses and, identifying really broad-based programs that are available to anyone. And here we are, a year and a half in, and we are learning and seeing that not all businesses were impacted equally. There were some that managed just fine. There were some that actually thrived, and there were some that were really hit hard. And the Economic Forecast Council, even when I met with them back in January, their advice to me as finance minister was it's time to pivot to do specific tailored supports, that broad supports are no longer the best way to go in terms of investments. And so we know that the tourism sector, the arts and culture sector have been hardest hit. So hearing specifically what they need to help them move forward, to help them thrive and grow is really, really critical. And we've been doing our best to focus on that. That's why we had the tourism task force. That's why our colleague, Minister Mark, has been, very laser focused on how listening to them and tailoring programs and supports for them. But we need to hear more. And I really do look forward to hearing from your deliberations, your consultations, how those specific businesses can benefit from government supports going forward.
Thank you, Minister. Any other questions for the Minister? Lauren.
Thank you, Minister, for obviously very comprehensive report. I just wanted to ask, you touched a little bit on wait times. That's become obviously pretty serious through COVID. Is there any specifics that you could outline or any programs? I know it's not specifically your ministry, but could you speak to that a little bit?
Thanks for that. So we have been, since we formed government, addressing wait times. And just to provide you with an example, operating the, if I can go pre-COVID, just as a reminder, operating CT scans and specialized equipment 24/7 instead of just sort of a 9 to 5 or an 8 to 4. And so British Columbians were eager if they could get their scan done, their MRI or whatever at 2 a.m, or wait 8 weeks, they would much prefer to do it at 2 a.m. And that really, did wonders in terms of moving things through. And we had made tremendous headway before COVID-19. But of course, as you're well aware, the health sector had to pivot to address COVID and all the COVID protocols, which certainly resulted in delays. We've been making significant catch up as a result. And I have to give credit to British Columbians, because British Columbians did the right thing. Columbians kept each other safe. Our healthcare system did not get overwhelmed. I think that is something that we should all be proud of. We never had to use the convention center, right? I don't know if everyone remembers. We seconded the convention center and set it up for overflow should we need it. And we just started dismantling it this last week. Because we know that British Columbians know to do the right thing, and they're getting vaccinated, and we don't expect to need it. So there'll be some, opportunity. We've been doing catch up for sure for the last number of months, but there's certainly more to do. So that's just an example of how we're doing catch up and reducing wait times.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, with that, it looks like we can let you go, Minister. Thank you for taking the framing and giving context to the important work that we have ahead of us. And thank you for answering our questions and helping us focus. I'm really taken by your comments about giving British Columbians an opportunity to tell their stories. And that is what we are charged with, is to encourage them to tell their stories, to hear their stories, and make sure that their stories are and their personal experiences are reflected in the next budget, which is basically where we're going as a province. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you for your thoughts and wisdom.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful summer. Have a safe summer. And I do look forward to seeing you all in person when we get the next chance. Thank you for your work. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Minister.
Shall we, before we go back in camera to outline, to make some final decisions about our schedule of presentations, shall we take a break? Shall we recess for 10 minutes?
Oh, okay.
Okay. Do we need a motion for that? No. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Welcome back. I'll now entertain a motion to move in camera. All in favor? Okay, we are now in we now go back to our main meeting. Thank you, everyone. We're pretty well at the point of concluding our meeting for today. We have a couple of motions. Jennifer, are the motions posted?
Can you see that?
Yes, I can see that now. Okay. Pam, would you like to read out your motion?
Help to unmute. Thank you. I move that the Select Standing Committee on Finance and Government Services approve and adopt the report entitled Interim Report on Statutory Offices as presented today, and further that the committee authorize the chair and deputy chair to work with committee staff to finalize any editorial changes to complete the supporting text.
Thank you. And do we have a seconder? We don't need a seconder. Sorry about that. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion carried. And we have another motion? Ben. I think you're on mute, Ben.
Thank you, Chair. I move that the chair of the Select Standing Committee on Finance and Government Services deposit a copy of the report entitled Interim Report on Statutory Offices with the Office of the Clerk, and further that upon resumption of the sittings of the House or at the next following session, the chair present the report to the Legislative Assembly at its earliest available opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you, Ben. All those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. So I believe that concludes our business for today. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Harwinder has moved that motion. All those in favor of adjourning? Thank you. Motion carried.